Okay, this week's reviewer of the week is RGP 2021, and she says, best podcast. Look no further for a pregnancy podcast. This one has it all. The ease of listening to this was the very first thing I loved, but it doesn't stop there. This podcast encouraged me to trust my body, advocate for myself, do the research, and get a doula. This podcast helped spark many conversations with my husband about what we wanted out of our birth, as it gave unbiased information on so many options. Thank you, because that is so big. I love, love, love being able to do that. When it came to when I went into labor, I was confident in my body and our knowledge that we were able to follow our birth plan exactly, no epidural. I knew what to do while at home and felt confident asking questions to the doctor before any decisions were made once at the hospital. Thank you, RGP 2021. I absolutely love that I get to read these and that you guys feel so empowered. I want to say that I really I feel like recently I've received a lot of messages, a lot of DMs, a lot of emails that have said, hey, I listened to your podcast and I did these things and I had this incredible birth, and that's the goal. So for all of you that are willing to leave a review or reach out to me and let me know how you've put this into practice, I just want to tell you how much it lights me up. This is exactly why I do what I do, and so thank you so much for leaving that review. All right, so today we have a special guest, and I am super excited to introduce her. Her name is Taylor. She is not only a new mom, but she is a My Essential Birth student who I hope had a really good birth experience, and that is why she's here to tell us all about her story. But I'm excited to share another birth story with all of you, and I know the feedback has been excellent, that you absolutely love hearing them. So if you are a My Essential Birth mom and you would like to also share your birth story here on the podcast, make sure to send me an email at hello@myessentialbirth.com, and we can have a little chat and get you on the podcast, because this is the fun part, hearing all about this. So Taylor, thank you so much for being here with me.
Thank you. I'm so excited to have this opportunity.
I know, me too.
So it'll be
yes. Okay. Well, good. Why don't we start? Will you just tell us a little bit about yourself? Tell me which baby this was, a little bit about like your pregnancy and stuff. What about you?
Yeah, so this is my husband and I's first baby. We had a little boy. We'd been married for 2 years, so he came a little bit earlier than we thought we were going to have kids, but we're so blessed to have him. And the pregnancy, I loved being pregnant. It was such a joy, and to know like, wow, we're really going to have a baby in 9 months was so exciting. The first trimester was definitely a little rough. I was very tired, very nauseous all the time. And on top of that, I was teaching at the time, so we just started a new school year. So on top of all that new year exhaustion, having the pregnancy kick in, that was a lot. But once I hit that second trimester, it was like, oh, this is so nice. This is wonderful. This is heavenly. And that continued well into the rest of the pregnancy, which I was very thankful for.
That's awesome. Yes. I know a lot of moms that they're like waiting, right, for that first trimester sickness to just like, please get me over the hump. And that was me too. I would hit about 12 weeks and I could tell it was letting up. And by 14 weeks, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can eat regular food.
Yeah.
Nothing's grossing me out anymore. Makes a difference.
Yeah, I was like, I hope.
So awesome.
Yeah. I was like, I hope when I hit that 12 weeks it gets better, but you just never know. So I was very thankful it did.
No. And there's no like, because you feel like once you're in it, like it's just going to keep going, right? Like you can't see that it's ever going to let up. Yeah. And then when it starts to, you're like, oh, freedom. Yeah. Okay, I can breathe. It's good.
Yeah.
Well, good. Okay, so tell me a little bit about your pregnancy. I know that this is like a big thing, right? Moms want to know, how do I know I'm pregnant, right? So like, what were some of your very first pregnancy symptoms? And what did you notice right away that told you, yeah, I'm definitely pregnant?
So I noticed I was even more tired than I normally am. I would come home from work and just sleep, like as soon as I got home, which normally I was tired, but I never could nap before. And now I was napping and I was like, this is kind of odd. And normally my cycle, I got my period on time. I was maybe like a day late. So I had missed it. And so I was like, okay, I'll give it a day or two. And after the second day, I just had this feeling of like, oh my goodness, I think like we could be expecting. So I was like, my husband said, well, maybe we'll wait a week and see before we take a test. And I was like, no, I can't do that. So the third day I went and I bought a test and I took it and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know. Like, we weren't like expecting this, and wow, here it is. And so the exhaustion and then having that missed cycle, I was like, okay, it's got to be it.
That helps if you're regular like that.
Yeah. So it was definitely a good sign of like, okay, it's gone at least 2 days, and once I've missed 2, I know something's up. So
I love it. I'm with you on the exhaustion. That was like a telltale sign. And you know what's funny is I don't know, I think it was like part mental, because it was as soon as I was like, oh, am I tired? Oh, am I pregnant? And then I'd take that test, and the second it said positive, I was like, oh, I gotta go to bed. Like all of a sudden, right? Like, yes, I'm sick and I'm tired and I'm definitely pregnant now. It told me on the test. So that's so funny. Okay, so did you have any, like, do you know, like, trimester to trimester, like first, second, third? I know that there's some telltale things that happen in each of them. Did anything stand out? Like you said, you had nausea in the first for sure. Did you have any weird cravings? Was there anything else that was like really fun? Were there any like weird second or third trimester things that you can think of?
I'm very thankful throughout my whole pregnancy. I just craved fruit, like fresh fruit was like all awesome. I wanted. I ate so much watermelon. It was crazy. We probably bought like at least 50 plus watermelons because that's like all I wanted anytime. And it was so sad because it wasn't really in season, so you're having to buy it like already pre-chopped. And I was like, oh, I know I'm spending so much money, but I don't really care. I just want the watermelons. So we'll do what we need to. So that was like the biggest craving I had. And then throughout the second and third trimester, I had my legs like at night would get restless and like they would almost feel like they're asleep. And I was like, this is so weird. Like, it's only at night when I'm trying to go to bed and I can't because now I'm uncomfortable. So
not fair.
Yeah.
So did you find any relief for that? Was there anything that you were able to do?
I started going to the chiropractor for back and hip pain that I was also having, and that seemed to help a little bit, but nothing really helped too much with that. So it's kind of just something I had to ride through and know, like, once I get to the end and have this baby, it should go away, which it did. Which was so wild.
It did or did not?
Yeah, it did.
Okay.
So it was like a switch. As soon as he was born, I didn't have any more like restless leg, whatever you would call it. So yeah,
right.
That was.
It's funny because, I've done podcasts in the past where it was like, here's your pregnancy ailments and like, what's the solution? You know, and 99% of them are like, have your baby. Yeah. You know, the solution is to have your baby because you're going to feel so much better. Yeah. So, and I think we have to get like that. Like, even for women who like loved being pregnant, and like a part of me really did enjoy that, but I think you do have to get to that point where you're like, okay, it's better for you to be out than in right now. Yes. Like, my body needs a rest, you know? So anyways, otherwise we just want those babies in there forever, kicking around, and so fun. I think it's the same with kids, right? That's why they hit their teenage years. Like, all right, you're good. Yeah. Get out.
That is very
true. My mother-in-law told me that. I believe it, 100%. Was there anything unique to your pregnancy? So, like, did you have any concerns come from your provider? Did you ever have a conversation with your provider that made you switch providers? Or maybe early on, were you really good about interviewing different providers? Or did you ever have to deal with like a change in due date or induction or a broken bag of waters? Like, was there anything unique to your pregnancy or as you're going into labor time that you can think of?
We had started out care with an OB up until 20 weeks because when we first found out I was pregnant, I was still like very nervous about birth and kind of had those images from the movies of like, this is a terrible thing. I'm going to be screaming. It's going to be so painful. And so I was kind of on the side of like, let's do it in the hospital. We could still go the more normal, natural route. But at least we're there and we have the comforts of if something were to go wrong. And my husband was like, you know, you were built for this. Like, your body is made to give birth. And
I love that it was your husband.
Yeah, so he's like, I really think you could do it. And he had a friend who is a midwife. So we were able to talk to her, and I was able to ask all these questions of how that process goes and if there was an emergency, what would happen. And she just gave me a lot of peace of mind and that reassurance of, no, you can do it. Your body's built for this. You will feel so empowered. You can do it. And so we started looking into birth centers in our area, and we were able to find a really great one in the city that we were going to be moving to. So we were able to transfer our care over to the birth center and the midwives, and that was the best decision I think we could have made. They were wonderful, and the care that we received was just so much different than going to the OB. It was a lot more personal, and it was cozy in there. It didn't feel so sterile. So I'm very thankful we made that leap and said, let's go for it. I think I can do it. So that would probably be the biggest thing, was that change.
That's great. And you kind of mentioned it's more personal, it's more cozy, it feels good to be there. Do you have any specifics for maybe a mom that is trying to decide or hasn't even looked into like birth center, home birth, midwife that way? Can you give some specifics of what was different meeting with an OB or having care with an OB versus having it with a midwife, even just for the pregnancy part?
Yeah, so with the OB, you go in, it's that typical sterile feel of a doctor's office, and you're there, you go in, you wait, they come in for maybe like 5 minutes, and that's about it. They don't really take the time to get to know you and your family and what you're looking for. I can't even remember them asking, like, what are you wanting in your birth? Just not having that connection or feeling like they're really invested in this process. And then when we transferred over the care, our birth center, our appointments were in like a converted home. They made it into like their office space. So you go in and you're waiting on couches, and then you go in to a room and there's cozy chairs. And so it was just like, you didn't feel like you were in a sterile environment. You felt like you were just in a comfortable, welcoming place that was peaceful. And they really took the time. Our appointments were always over an hour because they wanted to see how my symptoms were and what I was looking for in the birth and how I was feeling. They were asking what my emotions were like. And so it was just, they really wanted to know about all areas of my life rather than just get in, get out, move on to the next patient. So it was definitely, they really care about you and your birth. They really want to see you achieve the birth that you want, which was so sweet.
Yeah. And I think too, when you have a goal for your birth, when you have a way that you know that you would like it to go, knowing you have support on the back end, well, and I guess on the front end, when you come into the birthplace, it makes such a difference. So having somebody that, like, yes, they know and they care and they support and they're going to be there with me throughout. I'm with you. I think it is night and day in that regard. And it makes me want to ask your Enneagram number, because I think for some women, they're like, yeah, whatever. Like, I don't mind the 5-minute appointments and I like to get in and out. And like, I don't want you to know about my personal life. Like, just be there to catch the baby, And then some of us are like, no, like, this matters to me, like how I'm treated and looked at. And like the fact that I get to sit on a couch, like that matters, comfort, and especially for being able to be vulnerable and open and have a baby in front of people, that's big. So do you know your Enneagram number?
I think I'm a 2. I don't really know what that means, but I've like taken the test.
I do, because I'm a 3 too. Yeah.
I've like, people are like, you should take it.
Yes.
And so I did, and that's
it's the like helper and the softer side, like, I don't know. My 3 is a little like more forward and like maybe the business side of me, which is the one that is a little higher than that too. But yeah, like that, like softer in it, like you care about people and they care about you and like it matters. So that's fun. I'm going to start asking that from birth stories. Like, I want to know your Enneagram. Yeah, that's so funny.
That is funny how it does kind of like tie in with what I was looking for. Yeah. So, wow.
That's awesome. I love it. Okay, so you talked to me a little bit about your provider. So you started off in a hospital setting or planned for a hospital setting, and then you moved on to, did you end up giving birth in a birth center, or did this midwife come home with you?
We did a birth center. Right now we're currently renting, so I was like, I don't know if I feel too comfortable having a home birth in a place that's not ours. So hopefully the next one will be able to be a home birth. So we did the birth center, which was so great. Yeah. It was.
I love it. Awesome. Okay, will you tell me in your specific situation, was there one midwife that you met with and you knew that was going to be your midwife? Did she have a backup, or was it a group of midwives? And will you tell me a little bit about, did you like that? Do you wish it would have been different? Was there anything that way? I'm curious.
Yes, so the birth center we used, they had 3 midwives in the practice, but only 2 delivered or would be at the births. And they had 4 birth assistants as well. So they were kind of on a calendar that rotated. So you didn't really know for sure who was going to be at your birth, but they really made sure that you met with every midwife and every birth assistant a couple times so that you felt comfortable with everyone. And it just so happened to work out that the midwife and birth assistant that I really wanted to be at our birth, they were able to be there. Had I
love it.
Delivered on my actual due date, they wouldn't have been the ones to be there. So everything just worked out the way that it was supposed to. But I kind of liked the way their practice was set up, getting to meet with both midwives and all the birth assistants to really get to know everyone. And everyone there was so great that I was in a place of, it really doesn't matter who's at my birth. I know I'm going to be taken care of. I know they're going to just bring in that peacefulness into the birthplace, and they're really going to advocate and fight for my birth plan. So although there were a couple different scenarios that could have happened, I was really comfortable with however it played out, which I'm very fortunate to be able to say that, because I'm sure there are some birth centers where that is the scenario and you may not feel comfortable with all of them. So.
Yeah. I love it though, because you did the work and you, had the time and you got to meet everybody. And I think there's something beautiful. Like, I've seen it come together like that more often than not as a doula, where like the doctor that I wanted or that nurse that happened to be there and she wouldn't have been there because, this other way. And then it's just this beautiful, I'm on the spiritual side of things. I'm like, okay, Heavenly Father prepared this place for you. And then, other people, if you're like, oh, like the universe, I don't care what you call it, there's something special that happens when you're like this sacred space of bringing a baby into the world, and it comes together and it's beautiful. And I love that was your experience. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, they even said, they were like, it always just works out that the people that need to be at your birth will be there. And it was so true. And I was just like, wow, this is so awesome, like how it all worked together and played out.
I love it. I've experienced that as a doula too. I remember the very first time I wasn't able to make a birth because I was sick, and I was really upset by it because I'm like, this woman is counting on me. I am like, I know who her partner is. Like, I know what she needs. We've been through all of these things together. But then the woman that was backing me up went to her birth, and it was like, no, that's who she needed. That, and however it worked out, like that was who that woman needed at that time. And so that, it's been neat for me. I've also been that person. I've backed somebody up and been like, oh, I was supposed to be here with you. Yeah. This was part of your birth story, and it's just so neat. I love how that works out. It's my favorite. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about your partner. Yes. So first of all, I love that he was like, your body's made for this. Let's get out of the hospital and go to that's incredible. Yeah. What's his Enneagram number? Do you know his?
No, I don't think he knows either. So we're not too big into that.
Okay, so he'll have to test too.
Yeah.
That's okay. I know. It's just, I didn't mean to get into it, but seriously, like we did those podcast episodes, and then it got me curious about everybody. I'm like, okay, now I just need to know. Yeah. It's kind of like love language too. It makes me curious, like, what's your love language, Did you guys use that?
We did do the love languages, and it is so helpful.
Oh, I love it. Yes. Okay. I'll put, for anybody who doesn't know what I'm talking about, I'll put the Enneagram test and the love language book test in the show notes, so don't worry about that. So tell me a little bit about him. Like, how did he support you? What did that look like? At which point did you guys decide maybe we need a birth course and started looking into like further education or started listening to the podcast? What did that look like for you?
So, like I said, he was the one that was really encouraging of a more natural birth outside of the hospital. And when we got talking to his friend that's a midwife, she kind of emphasized that you really do need to be prepared and put some work in. You can't just show up and expect like a natural birth to be this super easy thing. Yes, your body was made for it, but there is some preparation and planning that has to go into it. So I'm
going to quote you on an Instagram post what you just said.
It is very true. And now having had the natural birth, I'm like, wow, it is so true. I think it would have been a totally different experience. But so we knew we needed to do this preparation, but didn't know what that looked like. I didn't even really know there was a such like thing as a birth course. So I was kind of like, okay, I know we need to be prepared, but what does that look like? So I had found the My Essential Birth podcast and started listening to it and loved it. It was such great information. And when you guys mentioned you had that birth course, I was like, oh, this will be awesome. Like, we can do it together. So I told him about it, and he was like, all right, awesome. Go ahead and get it, and we'll work through it. So we got the course, and it was kind of hard to get him to like actually stay focused on the episode sometimes of like working through, because it is a lot of information, and I think at times he was just like, oh my goodness, like this is a lot. But we were able to work through the course together, and I love that there were so many practical ways for us to work together through all the different things that were given to us, all the different positions we could try, or the counter pressure. I think that was really helpful for him to not just sit on the couch watch, but be able to actively do it. So I think that was...
Were there things that, when you look at your preparation, were there things that you're like, we did really good at this, we were really consistent with this, and I noticed that it helped me here in labor? Was there anything like that for you?
I think the biggest thing was practicing the counter pressure and those different positions that during labor he could help me with and be that hands-on, because I think that really helped him feel confident when the time came of like, okay, I know what to do, I know where to put my hands, I know what feels comfortable. So I think that would be the biggest thing, of just those practical ways for him that gave us like, okay, this is what you need to do, all right, let's practice. And so
I love it. Okay, so the part that everyone's waiting for, right? Let's talk about it. Like, how did you know you were in labor? What did the first contractions feel like? What was that like for you?
Oh my goodness. So my due date was May 15th, and I knew, listening to the podcast, I was like mentally prepared, like, okay, it's going to go over. I'm probably going to be late. That's okay. But every time I would go to my appointments, they were like, wow, he's really low. I don't even think you're going to make it to your due date. So I'm like getting these two different, like, he's pretty low, we might not make it. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe there's a chance I could be early or on my due date. But May 15th came, no baby. May 16th came, he still wasn't coming. I was starting to feel like a little crampy, but my midwife was like, you'll know when you're in labor. So I was like, okay, like I'm feeling crampy, but she's like, you're gonna know. And I was like, so I don't think this is it. So on the 18th, I went in for another appointment since he was a little late. And she did a cervical check, and she was like, you're 3 to 4 centimeters right now. When she did that check, I guess that kind of helped kickstart things, because I left and I was feeling really crampy. It was a lot more like, oh, okay, I think something is starting. But I went home and I was like, it still doesn't feel like real contractions. So I just hung out with my sister all day, and she kept asking, like, are you okay? Like, are you fine? And I was like, yeah, I'm good. I just need to breathe. Like, I just need to take it easy. She's like, I think this baby is coming soon. I was like, I hope so, but I don't know. This is my first one. I have no idea what to expect. And then that night around 11 o'clock, I woke up and I was like, oh, I'm feeling this a little more. So I decided to just like come out into our living room and just breathe through what I now know were contractions and kind of get in those comfortable positions. And then it got to the point about an hour or so later where I was like, whew, okay, this is really happening. It's happening every like 4 to 5 minutes. So I woke up my husband and I was like, I think it's happening. Like, I think it's starting. He's like, okay, we'll start timing your contractions and let the midwife know. And she was like, just keep an eye on it. Let me know when they get a little bit closer. And I was like, okay, this is happening a lot quicker than I thought. They were getting stronger. I was feeling more nauseous. So I was like holding the peppermint essential oil to my nose. Like, oh, that was a lifesaver to get through that nausea during those contractions. And so he was starting to do counter pressure when I felt them coming on. And about an hour or two passed and they were getting stronger. So I was like, I need to get in the shower because I need water. I need nature's epidural. I need something because this is getting intense. So I hopped in the shower for about 45 minutes while he was like getting everything ready to get in the car to go to the birth center. And when I got out, they were getting closer together that I was like, we need to call and we need to say we're coming because I'm feeling a lot of pressure down here. I feel like I could start pushing and I'm like worried we're not even going to make it in time. So we headed over to the birth center. It was now about 4 a.m. So about 5 hours had passed from when I was starting to feel like, oh, this I think could be it.
This is it.
And that was the shortest yet longest car ride of my life. It was only like a 7-minute drive, but I was like, we need to get there now. And when we got there, I think that's when I really hit transition because I couldn't like get out of the car. I had to like get down on the ground and I was like, I'm either going to throw up or have a baby right now. Like this is just not very fun right now. But they were able to get me in inside the birth center and get me all comfortable on the bed. And my midwife was like, do you mind if I check you? And I was like, that's fine. And I was like, if that wasn't just transition, like, I don't know what I'm going to do if I'm not ready to push. She's like, you're 10 centimeters. We're good to go.
Oh my goodness.
Can start pushing. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like, this is really happening. We're going to have a baby soon. And the pushing took a lot longer than I thought. I thought, okay, we're here. Maybe it'll just be like 30 minutes. Now I had to end up pushing like for 2 hours. And I was just very tired. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm pushing. This is a lot of work. I'm sweating. And I got to the point where I was like, is his head, like, do you think he's going to come out soon? So I was like, I don't know how much more I have. And my midwife was like, you know, I think in a couple pushes we might see his head crowning. And I was just like, oh my goodness, like, we're not even there yet. Like, this I feel like is going to take forever. But my little guy decided he wanted to make a grand entrance. So probably 2 or 3 pushes after I had asked that question, he just like came flying out. Like, he was just ready to come out, and my midwife was not ready for that. She thought we still had little ways to go. So she was like, oh my goodness. Like, she wasn't prepared to like catch him because he just came like right out in that push. And that was just the most amazing feeling. But I was like, oh my gosh, like, I wasn't ready for him to be here already. But it was so sweet and special.
Oh, good. Okay, let me ask, if you don't mind, just a couple questions about, like, you went through your birth, and will you tell me, you said cramping, like, at the beginning, you're like, oh, I feel kind of crampy. Was it, like, down low cervical cramp, down low, like, front abdominal? Was it your lower back? Was it all of that?
It was, like, my abdomen, so, like, how I would get period cramps, it was in that area.
Okay.
So...
Okay. And then was that the same, just more intense at like 11 o'clock at night when it was, you're like, I think this is the real thing?
That I felt more like in my back and start to like come around into like my lower
to your
belly, but I felt it a lot more in my back, and I was like, oh, okay. This is this is a lot more intense than before.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, that is the most common. So that's usually when I, as a doula, I'm like, okay, well, let me know when you're ready for me. Like, when they start wrapping around, like, from the back to the front, then it's like, okay, that's like telltale sign. So I love that you shared that. And could you tell me how you were working through those? So were you swaying? You mentioned water. Were you doing anything in the water? You mentioned some counter pressure. Was that on the hips or your back? Or what were some things that really worked for you? And then if you can tell me even, like, were your eyes open or closed? Did you have music playing? You mentioned the peppermint for nausea. Did you use anything else for relaxation? Also, I just threw all of those questions at you. So I'm just wondering, like, how you like walked through labor, like what that looked like for you, like physically and emotionally. So
yeah, when I first woke up and thought maybe this could be it, and I was in our living room. I was kind of doing the in the 3 exercises where
the pelvic tilts.
Yes, the pelvic tilts. I was doing those, and that brought a lot of relief to my hips and my back, and I was kind of just doing child's pose, just all the ways I could like twist my body to make it feel comfortable. And then once it got a little more intense, that's when my husband was doing the counter pressure on my hips and lower back. And that was the best relief. It like took away so much pain. I was like, keep doing this. I'm sorry if you get tired, but this is wonderful.
You're stuck.
Yeah. So every contraction, he was just ready with his hips. As soon as I said it's coming, he would just get behind me and just squeeze.
Awesome.
So that was probably the biggest tool that we used physically. And the peppermint essential oil was key for the nausea, because I didn't expect it to come on as early as it did. I knew transition I would start to feel that would be a pretty tell sign that it was coming, but it hit me pretty early on, so that was a great tool. And then in the water, I was swaying back and forth, kind of leaning over with the water just hitting my back, and that was so wonderful. It really is nature's epidural, because as soon as I got in the water, I was like, I don't ever want to get out. Like, can I just stay here?
That's the problem, right?
He was like, no, we gotta get you going. Swaying was really helpful, just leaning on him. And so those would probably be the biggest things. Once we got to the birth center, I had a playlist just of worship music that we put on.
Awesome.
And that really helped to kind of just center myself and be able to breathe and just pray and just be like, okay, this is going to be hard, but I got this. The Lord is with me. There's just a lot of peace here. And I had been listening to that music all throughout pregnancy, so it was kind of just like able to help me relax and just be calm when it was a crazy few hours.
I love that. You mentioned too, kind of at the end there, like positive affirmations. Like you didn't call them positive affirmations, but you were saying very positive things to yourself. Were those things that you had practiced saying prior, or that you just kind of like intuitively like knew you needed to hear and you wanted to repeat to yourself?
Yeah, I definitely had practiced them prior, of just those positive thinking, talking to my baby, because in the birth course and on the podcast, just hearing that over and over, like speak those positive things over you and it'll make it easier when the time comes. You kind of will just be able to click into it, and it'll almost be second nature. The biggest thing I said to myself was just, okay, breathe, like you got it, just don't hold your breath, like allow yourself to breathe. I was like, you got this, like you can do it. So I had said all these other affirmations like prior to birth, but then that was like the one thing that was just like, breathe, like one thing at a time, like, okay, you never have to do that again, like you can keep doing it. So.
Oh, that's solid. I love it. I feel like you've taken like all of the good advice and shared it within your birth story, like literally used everything that we're constantly talking about. So I love that you shared that. Way to go. Seriously. So good.
No, the podcast.
Yeah, and I think too, even just you. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say the podcast was a lifesaver, and just constantly reminding me of the things like do these, and it'll make it 1,000 times easier, and it did. So
that's the goal, right? Like get into your head like so much that you feel like you're hearing that over and over and over, right? Same with like the positive affirmations, like you just need it in your head so much. But you talked about too, like being able to move your body and how much movement was involved. Like, oh, I got up and I was doing the hip squeezes or not the hip squeezes, but the pelvic tilts, and it was giving me relief on my hips and my belly, and moving to the water, and what your husband was doing to support you. And I think so much of that gets lost when we do head in early to a hospital for a hospital birth, and we're immediately like hooked up to monitors and put on our back and asked to like stay still for a minute, you know. I think that there's like some natural intuitive, like mom and baby are working together, right? Baby's pushing against that uterus and they're working their way down, and mom's like moving hips, like, oh, in our heads, like, oh, that's not comfortable, I'm gonna move this way. But really like what it's doing is helping baby like navigate that birth canal, and that's huge. So I love that you shared like just, and how incredible, like what a testimony of it, right? That doing all those things got you to a point to where you make it to your birthplace 7 minutes away, and you're at a point where you can be pushing, you know, even though it took a little while, like you were at a point like by yourself at home where you got to that place, and within 5 hours too. Like that's pretty fast, especially for a first time mom to like hit active labor and then be at 10 centimeters. So that's incredible. Was that too fast? Were you like, whoo, I wasn't ready for that? Or was it like a natural progression and it was fast, but it was totally manageable?
I think because I knew all the different stages of labor and I knew kind of what to expect, it was fast, but I could tell exactly where I was and knew when it was like changing. So I think that was helpful. And honestly, I was very thankful with the pace that it was. I think it was not too short, but it wasn't like hours long. But my midwife actually, after I gave birth, she's like, you know, I had said you were 3 to 4 centimeters. You were actually more like 6 to 8 centimeters. And I was like...
She just didn't tell you?
I was like kind of confused. I was like, really? Like, why didn't she say anything? I don't know if maybe she didn't want to like scare me and be like, it's happening right now. But I was like, okay, I guess that makes more sense of why it went faster. Because in my head, I was anticipating it to be a lot longer. But I'm also like, how did I get to 6 centimeters and I didn't even know it? Like, thank you,
Walked
Jesus.
out of the office at 6 to 8 centimeters.
I'm like, thank you, Lord. Like, that was wonderful. And even my husband had joked around, like, when my due date passed, he's like, well, maybe the baby's just doing all the hard work, so when labor hits, like, it'll be a lot quicker and easier. And I guess that is what he was doing in those few days, that he was just hanging out in there.
That's so cool. What a neat story. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know that you did want to take a little bit of time and talk about your postpartum. And so if you have just a few more minutes with me, I'd love to hear about your postpartum and maybe some even advice that you have from your experience.
Yeah, so because my little guy decided to come out very quickly, I had a pretty bad tear. She had to do 15 stitches, which I was like, okay, that's a lot. And I knew it might take like a day or two of not being able to walk, but they were like, for 3 days, we don't want you to do anything. And at first in my head, I was like, well, that'll be really hard to be on the couch. But once the adrenaline wore off, I was like, okay, I can't even move anyway. Like, there's no way I'm going anywhere. And I think that was just really hard because for me, I don't want to have to rely on everyone else to do everything. I want to be able to help. I wanted to be able to change his diaper. And then with that,
you are an Enneagram too.
I guess it's all making sense. But with being so uncomfortable, I couldn't really sit up. And so that made breastfeeding a challenge. And so I had all of these things just kind of like going on, and it was just a lot harder than I anticipated. And I thought I prepared for postpartum. I thought I had everything I needed. I thought I was mentally in a place of knowing, okay, it will be hard. But it was even harder than I ever thought it'd be. So I really just want to share, like, it's okay that it's hard. It's okay that your body feels uncomfortable. It's okay that you're having to depend on your partner or your family or whoever you have. Like, let them help you. They want to help you. And just know that there's so much grace in this season of it's going to pass. It's not going to be forever. And I think that's what I had to remind myself every day of. There will be a day where I'm changing so many diapers and it'll be like I was never not able to do that.
You're not going to miss out.
Yeah. Even my husband was like, we have a long way to go. Like, it's okay. And just knowing, like, it's okay that you feel uncomfortable in your body, but it will pass and it will all be okay. And so I think just the biggest thing is let yourself rest. That was the biggest thing for me. Of when I let myself have that time, my body was able to heal. And when I could tell I was doing too much, I was like, okay, I need to pull back. And that really gave myself the ability to heal. And one of the biggest things that helped me was the Mama Frida Perry bottle, the one that isn't just like a normal squirt bottle,
We'll
but
put a link to it.
Has like the curve to it, so it's a lot easier to maneuver. That was a
Yeah.
lifesaver because I couldn't really do much moving, and with all the stitches, that really helped keep everything all clean and not get an infection. But just be gentle on yourself. Don't beat yourself up if it's hard. And I think, just lots of rest, lots of letting your family help you or your support system help you is key.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Thank you. I do like to end these with like, what's some advice you have for partners from your perspective, and what's some advice you have for moms? So what's some advice that you do have for partners? What could you say to them?
I think just remember this is like such a crazy time for your partner. The mom is going through so many changes, and to just be patient with everything that's going on. And there are some days where she may be more emotional than others, but just having that love and being there to be that comfort for her, and really just be there alongside her in everything she's doing to prepare, because you do play a crucial role. I don't know what I would have done without my husband there. Yes. And just listen to the things she's saying that are helpful. And you'll also know when the time comes if there's other things you can be doing. I think the partners have an intuition of, okay, I think she needs this, and be willing to try. Right. So just you have to prepare too. Don't think you're off the hook.
That's it.
Yeah. Yes. But
so true.
Yeah, enjoy the preparation. Don't feel like it's a burden. Like, it's an exciting time, and it's an exciting thing that you get to be a part of too. It's not just her.
Yeah. Love that. And then how about for moms? What is some advice you have for moms?
For moms, I think the biggest thing is really to do those 3 exercises as helped a ton. Really do those positive affirmations. Relax. Use this time when you're in this pregnancy to relax, because once you have the baby, it's very crazy and it's totally different. So I would say find a great birth course. Use that, because that was so helpful. I would go on a walk every day and just listen to the podcast or that kind of thing, but just use this time, be excited. I think it's just such a special time, and don't miss out on all the exciting parts of the journey. It's such a wonderful, wonderful, sweet time. So,
yeah, it really is. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. I appreciate your strength and courage for being here, and your willingness to tell your story, because I know it's going to touch so many women, just like you were listening to the podcast, walking and being pregnant, that'll be so neat for other moms to hear this story and gain strength from it. So thank you so much for being here with me.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's so special to get to share and have the opportunity, and hopefully it does help some other mamas who are going through it too.